Hey there guys, how's it going? Back with another movie review. So, since I've been doing some older movie reviews rather than new releases, I got another movie that I just recently saw for the second time. I saw this one a couple of years back on TV, and it's a movie that came out in 2013. And it's one I really wanted to talk about. I bought it on Blu-ray quite recently so I could rewatch it. And yeah, I figured I'd give this one a review. So it's the movie Homefront, starring Jason Statham. This movie came out in, I believe it was 2013 that this one came out, so several years ago now. And yeah, it's an action movie. I mean, obviously, it stars Jason Statham, so it has to be an action movie. And yeah, interesting one to me. So this movie was actually written and the screenplay and everything was done by Sylvester Stallone, which was quite interesting. And from what I saw from the special features of the Blu-ray, Sylvester Stallone claims that he and Jason Statham discussed this movie or the potential of this script, and they went over it and whatnot while they were filming the Expendables movies. So obviously with them being co-stars, they were the two main characters in those movies. They obviously spent a lot of time together and went over certain ideas for future projects, and this was a movie they came up with. And I gotta be honest, I think this movie's really, really underrated. I actually really like it. And as far as action movies go that star Jason Statham, I actually think that this is probably one of his most, if not his most, underrated. Because honestly, to me, as an action guy, I've always liked Jason Statham's movies, but he's always been kind of hit and miss for me. I think he's the type of guy that needs a good supporting cast and needs a good script and needs a director who knows how to film action and whatnot, because several of his movies have just been pretty lame, if I'm being honest. But I'm kind of 50-50 on it. A lot of them are really good, a lot of them are really bad. Like, for example, those of you who have been following me for some time will know that I reviewed the Transporter series, and I think that the first Transporter is a masterpiece. I love that movie. I think it's a proper, fast-paced, feel-good action movie, and I think that that's one of Jason Statham's best performances. And whereas this movie isn't quite as good as that, one thing I will say is that this movie was more realistic than that. Like in the Transporter, obviously it was an over-the-top action flick where he was just the super ultra martial arts badass that just could not be beaten in any sense. He was just unstoppable in that movie, and the stunt work and the action scenes were just fantastic. Whereas in this movie, it's a little bit more grounded. Basically, he plays an undercover cop who, at the beginning of the movie, he's deep undercover with this biker gang who are also like distributing meth and crack cocaine across the country and whatnot, and he basically is trying to bring down this gang from the inside. However, upon bringing down the gang, something goes wrong, and the leader of this biker gang's son ends up getting shot, and he ends up blaming Jason Statham and whatnot. This guy goes to prison, and it's a couple of years later. It says 2 years later in the movie, and Jason Statham is fallen on some hard times. Like his wife has died, and he takes his daughter to live out in the country and whatnot. They want to, they go back to where his wife was from and whatnot, and try and blend into this community. And he's kind of just trying to live a quiet life with his daughter. However, things happen. One thing leads to another without releasing too many spoilers, and the past sort of comes back to bite him in the ass, and he ends up having to save his daughter and ends up having to deal off several threats and whatnot. And this is just a really fun action movie, and it's a surprisingly well acted movie. That's what I will say. I actually do think Jason Statham in this movie, as the father, just trying to do right by his kid and whatnot, and some of the dramatic scenes. It's just a very grounded movie. As far as the villains of the movie, well, the main villain of the movie is James Franco, who I really like in this movie. He was actually one of the standouts in this movie, and he plays basically this small time meth distributor. He cooks up drugs like meth and crack cocaine and whatnot in his own little boathouse, his lab, and he's kind of like a local big shot, like a local gangster. Goes around roughing people up and scaring away like smaller time criminals and basically trying to grow his empire. However, you get the sense that it's very low key and it's very local, and he has a lot of ambitions to expand and try and become like a countrywide drug kingpin and whatnot. And basically, yeah, he sort of by complete by complete chance he ends up with a grievance against Jason Statham's character. due to some family matters and whatnot, and the two end up having a bit of issues with one another. Basically, he wants to try and intimidate Jason Statham's character and try and get him out of town because of something that happens with Jason Statham's kid and another kid who's a relative of James Franco's. And again, without releasing too many spoilers and talking too much about the plot, I just thought that the dynamic between the two was very good. And as a villain, James Franco isn't really an over the top, like, super powered guy. They didn't make the decision to make him sort of a challenge to Jason Statham. And, there's no big fight scene between them or anything like that. No, he's a regular guy who has like psychopathic tendencies. Like you got this very uneasy feel around his character. His character goes around doing some real horrible shit, and even within his family, they've got drug addiction problems and stuff like that. And this whole idea of him trying to be like a local crime lord and trying to expand has had a whole negative effect on his community and on his family and whatnot. And you get the sense that this guy will do anything to succeed, and he just comes across as a real psychopath. And I thought that the dynamic between him and Statham, who's the action hero, but just trying to be a good father, trying to do right by his kid, I felt that was really interesting to me. And I think that the movie was really well acted and really well written. And a lot of people forget that Sylvester Stallone as a writer is actually very talented. I've always felt that he's a very talented writer. Like, I loved the script for the first Rocky. Like, the dialogue in that movie was really interesting and whatnot. So Stallone, as well as being a great, a great action star and a guy who understands action, he's also a very underrated writer. And I think that the dramatic moments in this movie were actually really well done. And this movie, it's not Jason Statham's best action movie. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not saying that this is the next Transporter or anything like that, but it's just a real fun action flick with a hero that's easy to root for, that's more grounded in reality. It feels very local, this movie. It feels very down to earth, and the fight sequences, they're okay. There isn't really any shaky cam. There is a few unnecessary quick cuts here and there, which I don't really understand, because Jason Statham is very well known that the guy can do action scenes. Okay, if you've seen movies like The Transporter, for example, he knows how to fight. The guy's got martial arts skills. So I would have liked for them to maybe have used more wide shots and more, one take fight scenes. But there are a couple of them. It's just that some of the fight scenes towards the end of the movie felt a little bit choppy to me and only lasted like 30 seconds. But at the end of the day, the action for the most part is serviceable, and I would definitely recommend this if you like just a good fun action flick. So I'd give this movie a solid 7 out of 10. I think it's a really good movie. Really would recommend it. Let me know what you guys think. Anyway, I've got more movie reviews coming. I've got a ton of movie reviews to do because I've been watching a lot of movies lately. A lot of old movies and whatnot, movies from years back, and I got plenty of reviews coming. So let me know what you guys think. Anyway, also stay tuned for more boxing videos and whatnot. I'm going to be more active on this channel than I have been in recent months. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. God bless.